It's truly difficult to list all the accomplishments that Mr. Rasmussen has achieved during his time here at Creighton. Mr. Rasmussen is currently in his 34th year at the university, during which time he has been the head coach of the Blue Jay women's basketball team, the associate athletic director, and now the director of athletics, a position that he has held for over 20 years. As the head coach of the women's basketball team for 12 seasons, Mr. Rasmussen became the most winning coach in Creighton women's basketball history. Later, Mr. Rasmussen stepped in to fill the role of assistant director of athletics, and then eventually the director of athletics in 1994. Creighton University athletics began to assume a dominant position in college sports. During his current 20-year tenure as director of athletics, Creighton has won over 29 regular season and 36 conference tournament titles. Postseason play has been nothing new to our athletic programs under Mr. Rasmussen either. With multiple consecutive postseason appearances for both men's soccer and men's basketball, women's softball has also seen exceptional success by appearing in 6 NCAA tournaments in the last 11 years. In addition to their success on the field, our student athletes are noted for their academic success in the classroom. Blue Jay student athletes consistently earn above a 3.30 GPA in the classroom, something in which Mr. Rasmussen takes great pride in. As a result of his hard work and dedication to the success of Creighton athletics, it is no surprise that Mr. Rasmussen became a recipient of the Under Armour Athletic Director of the Year Award in 2010. Mr. Rasmussen has also been an influential leader in the Omaha community. He was one of 6 individuals on the College World Series Oversight Committee that has worked to keep the College World Series in Omaha for another 25 years. Most recently, Mr. Rasmussen was a key leader in being able to move Creighton University to the Big East Conference. This move will have a remarkable impact on Creighton by being able to publicize our accomplishments to others across the nation. Creighton University is a name that will only grow in recognition. On behalf of the Creighton Business Symposium team, please welcome Mr. Rasmussen.
I want you to know that I also received a lot of letters and emails and phone calls from North Carolina fans. I only responded to one, but it was a letter that basically said that we should drop athletics, our basketball coach should be fired, the AD should be fired, and we should have no athletics. And I sent a letter to this person saying, "Dear sir, you need to know that someone is sending stupid letters and signing your name to them." I never got a response back. I'm honored and humbled to be here today. There's amazing things that are happening in the College of Business, and it's great to be a small part of that. Tony wanted me to speak a little bit about my leadership philosophy and how I came to develop that, and I have to go back really almost 50 years. When I was in high school, I knew I wanted to teach and coach. I knew that because of the very positive impact that teachers and coaches had on my life. So I went to the Harvard of the Midwest, the University of Northern Iowa, and I got my teaching degree in math and in English. And my first job was in Murray, Iowa, there are more people in this room than there are in the entire community of Murray. There were 20 to 25 kids in a grade. And my job, I taught every math class from grade 7 through grade 12, 7 preps in a 7-period day. I was the assistant football coach, junior high football coach, assistant boys basketball coach, junior varsity boys basketball coach, junior high boys basketball coach, boys and girls track coach. And for that, my take-home pay was $251 a month, which was about $8 a day, and I was overpaid. Okay? But in spite of the fact that I loved coaching all the sports, basketball was my passion, and my first team that was uniquely mine was the 7th and 8th grade boys team at Murray. We put the 7th and 8th grade boys together because we only had 4 boys in the 8th grade, and one of them didn't come out. So our practice started on a Monday morning. We practiced from 7 to 7:50 in the morning before school so the kids could catch the bus after school. And we had 5 days to get ready for our first game. And so I meet with my players at 7 o'clock the first morning, and I spend a lot of time talking to them about the culture that I was trying to develop in the basketball program, and talked about how we were going to be more fundamentally sound than any team that we played. We were going to be in better shape than anyone, and we were going to play harder. I spent a lot of time going through my expectations, what was acceptable and unacceptable, and what our rules were. And with that, I said, okay, let's line up. Let's make 5 layups in a row from the right side, and then we'll go to the left side. It became very obvious that we were not going to make 5 layups in a row. We had trouble making a layup. So I thought, well, let's skip the fundamentals. Let's work on conditioning. And so we started running lines. My best and biggest player, Roy Stroud, 6'2", 8th grader, weighed about 300 pounds. I say about 300, we couldn't find a scale for Roy, but we had to put Vaseline on the inside of Roy's legs so that they didn't burn when he was running up and down the floor. But Roy comes over after a couple times up and down the floor and said, "Coach, I need to leave the floor." And one of my rules was you couldn't leave the floor without my permission. And before I said, "Why, Roy?" and before he could get his answer out, Roy threw up. Now, Roy's 6'2", I'm 5'10". I had glasses. The vomit started at my glasses, went down through my mustache. And so shortly into the first practice, I realized that I have to be flexible and that we changed our rules. You could leave practice without my permission if you were sick. Okay? On Saturday morning, we played our first game. We played against Creighton, Iowa. Creighton had about 10,000 people in the community, and we played their 8th grade team. We got beat 32-2. The score is deceptive. The game was really remarkably close until the opening tip. And I got more and more upset as the game went on, both with my players and our ineptitude, but also with the one referee. There was only one, and he was from Creighton, and they didn't need any help, but I thought he was helping the home team, and I communicated that to him and a lot of times. And we scored our one basket at the end of the first half with the clock running down. We threw about a half-court shot up, and it banked in, or we'd have gotten shut out. And I tell people the game would have been a lot closer now that we have a three-point line. But in the middle of the third quarter, the ref came over and he said, "You know, I'm tired of listening to you. I don't know who you think you are, but one more word out of you and I'm going to kick you out of the game." So I called timeout. Now, of the 8 kids on my team, Roy was the biggest. Kevin Johnson was the littlest. Kevin was 5'2", weighed about 90 pounds. And in practice, when I looked at Kevin, he'd start crying. Okay? So I called timeout and I say, "Kevin, come here." So I'm going to put you in the game, and wherever he goes, you go. I was pointing at the ref. I said, "And if you get out of your defensive stance, you'll never play for me again." And with those words of encouragement, I sent Kevin into the game. A couple times up and down the floor, wherever the ref went, there was Kevin in his defensive stance. And the ref came over and said, "What's going on?" And I said, "If you're going to play for him, we're going to guard you." And he kicked me out. So here I am. I want to be a basketball coach. The first game I'm coaching, we get beat 32-2, and I get kicked out. And I'm trying to figure out, am I going to resign before I get fired? And that afternoon, I walked around for a long time, and I was mad at my players. I was mad at the ref. I was mad at myself. Why did I take this job in this town, and I get stuck with these kids that have no talent? How am I going to show people my coaching ability, and how am I going to advance in my profession when I get stuck with these kids that have no talent? I was mad at God. Well, how did I end up here? The next morning, I go to church. Murray Church of Christ, Jim Epperson is the pastor, and the sermon is on 1 Samuel 16:7, which says, God doesn't look at things the way man looks at them. Man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. And the pastor told a story about 2 robbers that broke into a large department store in the middle of the night. They didn't steal anything. They just changed the price tags on everything. And so something that was maybe worth $100, they put a $2 price tag on, and something that was worth $2, they put a $100 price tag on, and they did this throughout the store, and then they left. They didn't take anything. The next day, the store opened, and business went on almost all day before somebody figured out that there was something wrong. And the pastor said, "How many of you believe that story?" No one in the church raised their hands, including me. And he said, "Why not? We do that every day. Our value system is messed up. We say you're valuable because you can run fast or jump high or put the ball in the basket or you make a lot of money or you have doctor in front of your name or you're pretty. God says you're valuable because you are." And he gave all kinds of examples, and I felt like he was looking right at me and talking right to me. I realized with these kids, I was so busy telling them what I expected from them, I had no idea what their heart was. I had no idea what their background was, why they were out for basketball, what they wanted out of basketball, how I could help them. So I went to each one of these players on Sunday afternoon to their house, and I met with each of them. And I asked them, I said, "Why are you out for basketball? What do you want? What are your goals individually? What are your goals as a team? And how can I help you?" And what I found out was that these kids wanted to be good basketball players. This is Murray, Iowa. It's the poorest county in Iowa. It's 1971. There's no basketball on television. Most of them are farm kids, and they wanted to be good players. They just had no background. They wanted to be good individually, they wanted to be good as a team, and they were willing to do what they needed to do in order to be good. I just never took the time to listen to them. And so the reality is, the first fundamental that I realized that I abused was I needed to listen. And somebody once said, the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it has occurred. That communication is both speaking and listening. And we spend so much of our time speaking, and if we don't listen, we don't learn, we don't know, we don't lead. And I had violated that. And I found out that really these were great kids who had a great passion for the game. They just didn't have much background. Second thing was that I told them that I was willing to help them in any way I could. And these kids decided on their own that they wanted to start practice at 6:30 in the morning, not 7. That didn't necessarily go over great with me, but because I was at school typically from 6:30 in the morning till whenever practice got over, and then I worked on my preps till midnight every night, and then I'd get up the next day and repeat it. But they were there at 6:30 in the morning, and they were beating down the door. They were willing to give up their lunch hour, which was 45 minutes every day, to come in and work on individual things. And they'd come in on weekends. And so what I found out was, and I helped them, but what I found out was they didn't care how much I knew until they knew how much I cared. And I think that's a good fundamental. It doesn't make any difference whether it's your family, whether it's your business, whether it's an athletic team. People aren't going to care how much you know until they know how much you care. And when I was willing to go beyond my job description and help them and make myself available to them, there were changes in them in practice and in their behavior. The third thing was that I didn't have an opportunity to recruit to Murray, Iowa. You took what was there. We didn't have tryouts, we didn't cut, we had 8 kids. Everybody was important, and everybody had to be important. And if we improve the condition of one, we improve the condition of all. And so when we worked with one person, we found out that it made everybody better. And that happens in an organization, that happens on an athletic team. And then lastly, I knew that we weren't going to win any games. I mean, you get beat 32-2 and the only basket you score is a half-court shot at the end of first half. You come to the conclusion fairly quickly that you're not very good. And so I said, listen, we're not going to pay any attention to the score. What we're going to do is we're going to work on the process. We're going to work on getting better every day. And then we'll take the results. And I thought back to my grandpa, who, when I was growing up, lived next door to us. And first of all, when I heard the sermon and the pastor go through example after example after example, I thought of my grandpa, because my grandpa used to repeat a lot of things to me. And one day I looked at him and said, "Grandpa, why are you telling me the same thing over and over and over again?" And he said, "Because repetition penetrates even the dullest of minds." And so anyway, but my grandpa also said that if you're going to be good in life, you've got to do the best job with what you have. One of the things that you say all the time was, if the grass always looks greener on the other side of the fence, you're not taking very good care of your yard. Your job is to not spend your time looking at what other people have that you don't have. Your job is to do the best job with what you have that you can. And he would tell us that life is sort of like a canvas, a blank canvas, and that God has given us a canvas. He's given us paints, and he's given us brushes. He doesn't give us all the same brushes or the same paints, not the same talents, not the same opportunities. But you can spend your time wondering why you got the paints and brushes you got and somebody else got something different, or you can spend the time painting the best picture you can with what you have. And what really bothered me when I thought about this was under pressure, and my grandpa was a great influence on me, but under pressure, I forgot all my fundamentals. I went away from them. And I said, I'm not going to let that happen again. But so one of the things I did was I got a saying that I found that I thought was appropriate, and I put it on my wall, and I looked at it every day. And I have it in my office today, 40-some years later, because I need the repetition. But the saying went like this: until a man has learned to listen, he should not teach. Until he realizes that everyone has something of truth and wisdom to offer, he does not begin to learn. It is only when he sees how each of his fellow man surpasses him that he truly becomes wise. I want to go back through that. Till you learn to listen, you should not teach. You can say, well, that doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm not a teacher. But the reality is, you're going to spend your entire life teaching, okay? Especially if you're in a leadership position. You're going to spend your entire life teaching. You're going to teach your spouse, your significant other, your friends, your kids, your business associates, what you like, what you don't like, what's important, what's not important, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And until you learn to listen, you should not teach. And what I've seen with great leaders is they spend a lot of time teaching also. They're obsessed with teaching. They're obsessed with getting better. I've been at Creighton 34 years. I hope I don't have 1 year of experience 34 times. You hope that every year you get better, you learn, you improve, you find out the process in athletics. And one of the great, I think, attractions of athletics, it's a very visible reminder of the process that we go through. You know, in athletics, whatever sport it is, it's a game of mistakes. Coaches make mistakes, referees make mistakes, players make mistakes. You try not to string mistakes together, and you try not to repeat them. But you find out where your weaknesses or your mistakes are, and you try to correct them and improve them. And that's life too. But until you learn to listen, you should not teach. And it's important to listen. It's important to develop a culture, establish a culture where people are not afraid to communicate, where you encourage communication, where you ask people, you know, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this? How can we do better? How can I help? Listen. Secondly, until you realize that everyone has something of truth and wisdom to offer, you do not truly begin to learn. And again, good leaders are obsessed with learning. But again, in athletics, I think we see the best example of that is that everybody on the team is important. In my years at Creighton, what I've seen is it isn't the most talented teams that typically win. Now, the teams that win a lot are talented, but they're not the most talented. They're the teams that do the best job of recognizing the talent of each person on the team and using those talents. And, you know, we've got a hopefully 3-time All-American, first-team All-American. Doug McDermott cannot be successful unless somebody passes him the ball, unless somebody sets screens to get him open. You can't have 11 quarterbacks on a football team. You know, in order to be successful, there are a lot of people who are responsible for that. And in organizations, a lot of those people are not in the spotlight. They're behind the scenes. And so those organizations, those families, those teams that are most successful do the best job of recognizing the talents of each person on the team, using those talents, and also affirming those talents by letting others know how important that they are. And then it finishes with, it is only when you see how each of your fellow man surpasses you that you truly become wise. Everybody that you come in contact with is better than you in some way. And if you have a habit of looking at people that way, you have a great chance to be successful. And I found out that I became a much better leader when I concentrated on serving others instead of having them serve me. When I looked at others and said, you are better than me in a lot of ways, and how can I use you in our organization? And I think that's a culture. So what we're talking about in saying, listen, I listen to others, I care, everybody's important, the process is more important than the results. Even though we keep score in athletics, I think the process we go about is more important. I think you can sum it up in one word, and that word is love. Now, you don't hear a lot of athletic directors talking about love, sort of like Bill Clinton talking about ethics. My wife gets concerned when she hears me use the word love. My kids call the warden. Okay, we've been married 36 years. My kids and the kids in the neighborhood have always called my wife the warden. A few years, and when you're married 36 years, you find out that the three most important words in a marriage are I love you. The two most important words are yes, dear. So a few years ago, my wife said, we're going to this marriage seminar at the church. It's on Saturday afternoon. We are going, right? Yes, dear. One of the exercises was they took all the men in one room and the women in the other, and they ask you questions. How well do you know your spouse? One of the questions was to name and describe your wife's favorite flower. And I'm here to tell you that Pillsbury All-Purpose was not the answer. I thought it was. Anyway, with my kids when they were young, we had problems. We went to church every Sunday morning. We had problems getting my 5 kids to church, ready for church, and getting them to church on time. And then it really bothered the warden that once we got there, one of them always had a reason to leave. They had to blow their nose, they had to go to the bathroom, they had to get a drink. And so one Sunday morning she says, today we're going to have a new rule. Nobody leaves church. Isn't that right? And she looked at me. 2 most important words. Yes, dear. So we go to church. 5 minutes into church, I knew I was going to have to break the rule because I'd read the Sunday morning paper, had 3 cups of coffee, 2 glasses of juice. We're standing, singing, and I leaned over to the warden and said, I need to leave church. She said, you can't. I said, I need to leave church. She said, you'll be setting a bad example if you leave. I said, I'll be setting a bad example if I stay. So I left. I hurried, got my business done as quick as I could, and I slid back. Now, I've talked a lot about communication. Sometimes communication takes place with no words being spoken. And I thought, I will slide in the pew next to my wife, I'll snuggle up to her, and she'll know that I'm sorry. So I snuggled up next to her, and I could feel the anger and the animosity emanating off this body. So I thought, well, I'll put my arm around her and let her know that I care. I put my arm around her. I got a elbow to the ribs. So I thought, well, I'll look her in the eye and say, I love you, which I did. My arm around her, looked her in the eye, said, I love you. It wasn't my wife. I had slid in the wrong row. To make it worse, my wife and my kids were in the row behind us. So they watched me snuggle up to this lady I didn't know in church, put my arm around her and tell her I loved her. So the warden isn't real happy when I talk about love, but that's what love is. Love is saying, I listen, I care, everybody is important, and the process is more important than the results. My favorite basketball player growing up was a man named Bill Russell. And a lot of you who are young probably don't know who Bill Russell is or was, but some of you who are older do. If you know Bill Russell, or you knew him, you can understand why there was a connection. Bill Russell was 6'10", I was 5'10". He was black, I'm white. He was left-handed, I'm right-handed. He was a great basketball player, and I played basketball. But Bill Russell was the man. When he went to the University of San Francisco, they won 60-some consecutive games, and they won 2 straight NCAA championships. He won a gold medal in the Olympics before they used the pros. He was the captain of that Olympic team. Went to the Boston Celtics. They won 11 championships in 13 years. I got a chance to hear Bill Russell speak one time, and somebody asked him in the question and answer session afterwards, out of all those things, NCAA championships, Olympic gold medal, 11 championships in 13 years, 5-time MVP, what was the most meaningful thing out of all those things that happened to you? He said it was none of those things. He said it was a time we were playing Philadelphia 76ers in Philadelphia. He said Philadelphia had a man on their team named Wilt Chamberlain. He said it was 20 degrees below zero. It was a blizzard. The arena was half full, and we got beat by 30-some points. We were awful. He said I went in the locker room after the game. He said I was mad at the world. He said I was mad at myself. I was mad at my teammates. I was mad at the coach. I was mad at the officials. I was mad at the world. He said it took me an hour to shower and walk out to the bus. And he said, now remember, it's 20 degrees below zero, blizzard. And he said there was a short little fat kid that waited an hour to watch me walk from the locker room to the bus. He said that was the most important thing that ever happened. He said it is so easy to say, I don't like you. I don't like this. This has come up short. We need to change this. He said it is so hard to say, I believe in you, I like you, you are my friend, I love you, I like what I'm doing. He said, I'm 6'10". I was given a great amount of ability. I was getting paid a lot of money to play a sport that I loved, but all I could do was find the negative. And he said, I made a habit of from then on to really be thankful for those things that I've been given. And one of the real values of athletics to me is that we find out as individuals. We find out that we can do so much more than we thought we could do. The inconceivable is conceived and achieved. If you're in athletics for any period of time, you start doing things you never thought you could do, okay? Whether it's individual or whether it's as a team. You know, in Creighton athletics, we started soccer in 1990 in the Midwest, football territory. 2 years later, we're in the NCAA tournament. We've been in the NCAA tournament every year since but one. Five times we've been in the Final Four. The inconceivable is conceived, and then it's achieved. Creighton University, private school, Catholic school, Omaha, Nebraska, not a very large undergraduate student population, has been in the top 10 in the country in men's basketball in attendance, men's basketball, men's soccer, and baseball, the only school in the country that can say that. The inconceivable is conceived, and then it's achieved. That doesn't just happen in athletics. That happens outside of athletics. Our potential is so much greater than we think it can be. We can have so much more of an impact than we ever thought we could have. Our ability to have an impact on others, our ability to make a difference is off the charts. It's unlimited. And I think, and I found in my years, that if you listen to others, if you show them that you care, if everybody is important, and if you go about the process the right way, then you can accomplish amazing things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. As a student of Creighton University, I can't begin to thank you for the contributions that you have made to the university. You are truly a remarkable person and leader, and we look forward to the continued success that you will provide to our school and the student athletes. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and experiences, and on behalf of the planning team, the Hyder College of Business, and Creighton University, I would like to present to you a token of our gratitude. The 10th annual Creighton Business Symposium has been a great success. We have been able to learn from one another, hear the wisdom of others, and share valuable ideas. We have also been able to network with individuals from across the country and discuss current business topics with fellow peers. However, none of this would have been possible without the support and dedication of so many individuals. And therefore, on behalf of the entire planning team, we would like to take this time and recognize them for their contributions. First and foremost, we would like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Don Waite. Mr. Waite is not able to be here with us today, but we know he would sincerely appreciate your appearance at this year's event. Without their tremendous support, neither the Anna Tyler Waite Leadership Program nor the Creighton Business Symposium would be possible.
Additionally, we'd like to thank Creighton University, especially the Hyder College of Business. Without the entire support system, Dean Hendrickson, Ms. Colleen Hendrick, and all the faculty and staff, this event would not be what it is today. We'd also like to thank our sponsors. Whether you're a first-year sponsor or a sponsor for the last 10 years, your contributions have helped make this event what it is today, the largest student-led event in the nation. We'd also like to specifically thank our keynotes, Mr. Nick Gusiani and Mr. Bruce Rasmussen, our conversation leaders, Mr. Ron Gartland and David Kesnick, and all our panelists and moderators. It is your dedication and willingness to share your stories and experiences that makes the symposium a truly unique event.
Over the past 10 months, our 14 team members have been working to organize and plan for this event. However, we would be remiss not to acknowledge and recognize the one key individual who has been helping us from the start. On behalf of the team, we would like to thank our advisor, Mr. Jeremy Fisher. You are truly incredible in all that you do for the team and the Hyder College of Business. Whether it was answering important emails at midnight or staying an hour longer after work to attend each meeting, we appreciate your ability to be there for us each and every step of the way. Your hard work and dedication to each student in this university is truly amazing. Creighton University is certainly blessed to have someone like you. Thank you, Jeremy.
Lastly, we'd also like to take a moment to recognize our 2013 planning team. Team members, please rise. Brittany. Brittany, Ethan, Dylan, Robert, Brian, Michael, Katie, Allie, Chris, Matt, and Maho. Additionally, we'd also like to recognize Chrissy Wedmeyer, the other member of our team who is currently studying abroad. Your 10 months of hard work and enthusiasm has produced today's incredible event. We cannot fully express our gratitude for the work that you have done to make this possible. We could not have been luckier to have the opportunity to work with you. Thank you. Finally, this is an event put on for students by students. We'd like to thank all the student participants, including the visiting high school and students from other Jesuit universities who are with us today. Because of your willingness to learn, network, and grow, we're able to put on a program of this magnitude year after year. You, the students, are why this program exists, and we thank you tremendously.
As you leave here today, we challenge you to take what you have received from today's event and apply it in your own studies, life, and career. The Creighton Business Symposium has grown through the desire of others to consistently achieve to be the best. We are proud to announce that today we have the largest attendance ever in Creighton Business Symposium history. We celebrate the success that the symposium has achieved over the past 10 years, and we look forward to another decade of excellence. Thank you.